Here we go. Thank you again. Hello, I am Deb Cobiello, the Drop-In CEO, and as always, grateful that you've joined us for another episode of the podcast where week after week I speak to the most amazing leaders who bring their insights to you. And just know we do this every week to help the C-suite leader partner with the C-suite leader to be able to navigate their challenges with confidence. And it is my distinct honor to introduce to you Michael Johnson, who is a dynamic senior leader with over 20 years of experience in global engineering management and product development. He is currently the principal of Stress Engineering Services. He is known for his ability to align business strategies with successful execution. We're going to talk a lot about that. And he has consistently driven innovation, business growth, and operational efficiency. I'm going to let him tell his story, but Michael, welcome to the Drop In CEO podcast.
Oh, thank you, Deb. It's very nice to be here. I appreciate the time and opportunity to share.
And again, thank you. Thank you. We're going to have an amazing conversation. And a quick shout out to Johnny Alexander, who introduced us. The power of the network is what brings people together. Really, we're in this to connect with humanity, build relationships, share those insights so that we all can succeed. But Mike, I know you and I've had some great conversations. We vibe off of each other in how we see leadership, leading organizations, but would love for you to share a bit about yourself and personal stories so that you can get to know my audience a little bit more and they can get to know you.
Oh, great. Yeah, I'd love to share a bit about myself a little bit. We'll start with, the greatest thing about me is I'm a father of four. So I just want to make sure I put that out there as that is my most passionate element of what I look after, and the things I do today are based around that. So that leadership and guidance that I give to my family cascades right into what I see and learn every day as a leader within both multinational organizations as well as now in an engineering services organization that I'm leading and presenting specifically within the medical aspect and staying in that field. So over the last 20 plus years, I've gone from automobile, where I could even go back to the leadership I gained in the U.S. Navy, and then went to automotive, and then took that leadership skills they trained into medical device, where I've been for the last several years, working with larger companies such as Johnson and Johnson, and then really got excited when I was recruited to pull a portion of Johnson and Johnson out and support a startup with a private equity company here in town, and learned a lot through being really shot out of a cannon and what it's like to stand up something and lead in an area you're just so unfamiliar with. So it was a great experience, and I've taken that along the way and all the way up through acquisition.
So, yeah, I can relate to you on so many levels. We're going to come back to that startup topic. Oh my, you and I, for those of you who watch on the YouTube channel, Mike's got a few gray hairs. And by the way, I cover mine up. Those startups can be growth and most challenging. But I truly appreciate you leading with family because, again, you get to know me and my audience, one of the things that became very purposeful in the work that I'm doing here is we are providing these insights so that we don't have to struggle as much in our career pursuits and our passion, because ultimately we want to spend more time with the people we care about. I'm a mother of three. I'm part of communities, married, etc. And yeah, they're there to have your back when you're going through your career, but we really need to be in service to them. So how can we as leaders be able to lead in a way that we can ourselves and our teams enjoy more doing the things they prefer to do. So really, really appreciate that.
Oh, great.
Yeah. So startup, I'm just going to cut to the chase here. So, we talk about being in corporate environments, things that might be bigger, more stable, et cetera. And then you have this opportunity to go to something that you say you've really grown with. A lot of people won't take that leap. And it's one of those things that I think, yeah, challenging, but extremely rewarding. I'd love to dig in a little bit deeper about what you found most challenging and also where you've grown the most being in a dynamic environment.
Well, I will say it was one of the most challenges that I've had to experience my entire career. It was both the best thing I've ever done
Yeah.
as well as the hardest thing I've ever completed.
Hmm.
And I take that back all the way to being 18, 19 years old, 20 years old when I was being put in charge of nuclear reactors and working with the Navy. So your experiences of can do in a very complex environment, you pull that all the way through. And you're pulled out of a large organization, Johnson and Johnson, leave that organization, safety, pensions, what have you, and you have a family that's responsible, and you jump into this new environment that there's no furniture, there's no buildings, there's and that it's you understand your role is to help deliver, and just like your family relies on you, you take that burden of let's just do this, let's just figure out how to do this and be successful. And it was extremely uh, I use that term because it was an extreme time at some time at points, because we were all pitched in for the success of the company. Some had different values and equities, and at startups that's evident in there, but we were still at all levels knowing that we needed to make this successful. And I think the seeing that with everybody just willing to pitch in and build something from scratch, and see the actual endpoint there, that was you could just the vibe of the all the folks we were working with, and it was very tough and it got very rough, but that vibe and that team was great to push all the way through. So it was very exciting and rewarding, very rewarding, both personally, and there were some outcomes on that other ways.
So if I could respond to that, yes, yes, and yes. I was in a startup company. I dropped in consciously into it. And it was one of those things that, yeah, I was the head of quality, but then I became kind of the head of customer service and technical support. And I even remember a day where we were told, go out on the floor. Go out on the floor and look busy because we've got some investors coming through. We need to like show that there's some activity so we can get our next round of funding. So we got out there and got
Yeah,
busy. Back then, I didn't have the savvy of understanding the business climate, but wearing multiple hats and doing whatever needed to be done, yeah, that was tough. I think I was 35 at the time. It was tough.
yeah,
And for me, there's two wonderful things that came out of that for me was one, that's where I learned about being a CEO. A CEO dropped in and helped us through a challenging time. That's how I got the drop-in CEO mindset from that experience. At the same time, as a young leader without a support system, for some reason, the leadership either didn't invest or didn't support me. I made so many mistakes. And in retrospect, I've learned from those mistakes. But oh my, being in that environment sometimes, you've got to have the right leadership to be able to help navigate those tough challenges. And so, again, this is why I do what I do. Make sure everybody out there has a support system to navigate these challenging times. So, best of times, worst of times.
yeah, 100%. And I'd like to make sure I agree with you on all those points. We made mistakes, we had issues. Our leadership was not always perfect, coming out first time for many of them as well. So it was relying on each other, making mistakes. I probably could I could probably give you 10 names that maybe didn't partner with so well during those times as we were jiving all the way through. But it was still exciting, and the elements and the learning you had of an individual, because the positive on the outcome of that is we sold the company to Danaher, and very large company, and I was afforded also some continuation of leadership, but also then professional coaching. But I would say is all those mistakes that were put together as a young leader and trying to figure it out, reading books, listening to whoever I could, or just doing, but then pulling that together with some of the coaching that I got from Danaher and being able to leverage those experiences into becoming a better leader and understanding more so about how I could have benefited the team as a team member that was somewhat of a indirect leader from that standpoint within the team, but then also going through becoming director or VP or whatever the term I got, whatever title they put on my name. So it was fun. It was definitely
Yeah,
fun.
it is. And again, I encourage people that like the safety of a steady paycheck, like the all the resources that you have afforded you. You turn to your IT person, they show up right away. I know in my own business, I look here, look there. It's like, where am I going to find somebody to help me? But again, the growth opportunity is amazing. So I encourage people,
Yeah.
yeah, get your ducks in order, but be ready to take a risk and be ready to be better on the other side. But, fast forward, look at yourself. You're head of a organization, leading technical teams, etc. You've learned a lot. And now in the current day, what are some of the thought leadership that you have about, this is what I believe in terms of effective leadership? How are you leading your teams now, given that you have all this knowledge and a few gray hairs like me and wisdom to bestow on the next generation? Just how do you lead now?
Really, in the role that I have today in the organization that I'm working in today, it's a lot about being indirect in that leadership because we're very, very flat in our organization. So one of the items that, looking at what is an effective leader in this organization that I'm at, and it's also when I work with my clients, it's when we can pull that team together without having to say, I'm your boss, or without having to really, but having folks see that want to be with you, want to work hard with you, and want to move to that next level of success with you, not necessarily for you, like, for instance, in a top down leadership. But really, it comes down to how do I judge it by how many folks want to work with me. And that's even when I get a call back from a client nowadays that I'm in consulting. That is a true tale of somebody that's seeing value and wants to work with us or with me to be able to move to the next level. So that's kind of that judgment where we have is that, that return call or that team that's here that really doesn't have to stay on my team. They can go to another part of the business, but it's really comes down to want to work with to move into the next level or next project or next success from there
Oh,
on. So
that's so meaningful because, again, we have titles, there are hierarchies, but I even talk about, partnering with a C-suite leader. Yeah, they may have more experience than me, but it's more about that partnership because, again, when we get to leadership, we're not the smartest person. We have some really smart engineers
yeah.
around us. It's more about guiding the ship. And you're right, it's a testament when somebody remembers you or, hey, I'd like to transfer onto your project. That is also, again, speaking to one's legacy. It's not just getting the results for the customer, but it's also with the team. But I think one of the things we talked about earlier was it's not just about the engineering work, but also you're very connected to the outcome of your customer, which might be a little bit different than other engineering firms, consulting firms. You give us a scope of work, we execute on that scope of work, we invoice for that scope of work, and we move on. You as a leader in the organization are a little bit different. How is that?
Well, I really take, when as I've grown up through the leadership element and have learned, and I see now as I'm more senior in my career and I see new young leaders and our engineers are working with young engineers or new leaders at our clients, I really start to focus in on the problem, but also I look at how is their organization or their leadership and their folks how are they working to make themselves successful with our team? So really starting to, I'll say, massage my messaging beyond the engineering or engagement with the folks on the other side, because I'm just trying to make that young leader, maybe that young engineer, that young team, just really trying to make them successful on the outcome. So not only do I make sure that the engineering is shored up and our team is great here, we have great engineers, and I make sure that's taken care of. But we're also looking for how do we make sure that our clients are being successful both on the project, but also the engagement and the leadership and how are they delivering it to their organization. So it's really just the big picture because I don't want to give an answer. A lot of times we can give an answer of yes, no, some quantified number, but we're really looking to move our clients into the next level, make them successful with our work. And that's how I approach a client, anyways. And that's
Awesome.
how I wish my people would have approached me when I was younger. So I use that to really drive into understand our clients a little bit more.
And I appreciate your retrospection because we can look at we've had good experiences and bad experiences, but true leadership is how can we take those bad experiences and say, what could I have done differently? What can I learn? And what can I share with others? Um, so when I think about though, again, we know engineering company, but I think what's really important for my audience is to kind of have a picture of the kind of work that you do with your teams. Again, without, disclosing, any specifics.
Yeah.
I'd love to know a little bit more about, some of the engineering pursuits or problems that you guys have had to solve. What were the challenges of your customers? And, other than just maybe the technical issue, how then did you help them ultimately achieve the success that they were looking for?
Absolutely. I think one of the biggest I've been at this organization now going on 7 years, and one of the largest successes that I've had here is a diabetes pump company. I'll just say wearable company had approached us where they were really struggling to get a portion of their product moving along,
Hmm.
and they were also reshoring aspects of that product. So taking the fact that I had global manufacturing and operations within previous career and comfortable working around the world, I was able to not only technically start to help them pool their planning and resourcing and matched with our resourcing and pull that together to help them really move their organization forward, but also from a leadership standpoint, helping them. They were new in the United States, building a improved quality management system, bringing on leaders, building facilities. So we were sharing. Well, myself was making sure my team was supporting the technical need, and then I was then supporting the leaderships that I was engaged in on anything with interviewing folks to help support their team, all the way to give them guidance in different areas of their quality management, all based on my experiences that I had already done with a startup. Although this company had been around a little while, they were much like a startup because of the scale and the reshoring they were doing shortly after COVID and what have you. So it was very much a brand new business, felt like a brand new business to them. And so I just was trying at all points to leverage my experiences and share that with that client all the way through. And like I said, it went from engineering to operations to quality systems to just advice and running meetings for some of the young leaders that had shared, that had asked me to come into the meeting and just observe and get feedback.
Well, it's such a great story, but there's some really great insights. And again, our listeners get to listen to you and I just going back and forth. I know we've been sharing a lot of your leadership insights so they can learn. But when I think about what you've done, and again, within another company, you talk about your experience in global operations, your experience in engineering, your exposure to quality, supply chain, and what have you. Essentially, you were in the mindset and of the role in partnering with them as a CEO. Because a CEO will not know everything of the business, but they have a little bit of an understanding throughout multiple work streams to be able to see and piece things together because they're not like necessarily down in the weeds. And that I see as great value. You as a leader in your organization, is to have that great perspective. See yourself as the CEO of that company. Yes, solving an engineering solution, but we're so much more based on our experience. And so I just want to acknowledge you because I think you're so much more than just, okay, I'm an engineering technical leader. You've done it all. You've done it most of all. And if there's something that you haven't done, well, I'm sure you know some smart people and bring them in the fold again in service to whatever client comes across
Right.
your
Right. Yeah.
doorstep.
No,
So
that's very true. I think, and that's where even here in the building with our own organization, as we're transitioning from a founder organization to an ESOP over the last 12 months,
okay.
just enabling or providing any experience I can to leaders that are being asked to lead in a different way, organizational structure is in a different way, helping people in a different way outside of that traditional founder kind of pyramidal type structure. So now it is creating expectations, creating management by, I'm going to use objective, not necessarily what we're doing, but so similar to that, creating expectations within our teams. So really, absolutely, it's all those experiences gained over the last 20 plus years, starting with military coaching, whatever the case may be, and looking for those opportunities to help others and share that experience with them. And typically, I am definitely looking for that smarter person to come in and help me out, because I pride myself on bringing those folks in and not being the smartest person in the room, but being okay with bringing all those folks in to support the direction of whatever we're trying to do.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of some of these younger generations. They may have mastered some tools or platforms or they're early adopters. And it's like, how did they get that done so fast? I embrace them now and don't see it as a threat. And the other thing, again, as I get to know you, is you're highly aware as a leader. You mentioned that you've gone through some coaching. You value that support even as you continue to grow as a leader. But I am curious as we look at your strengths, because you've recently gone through some of this of self-evaluation, being from a engineering background. Analytical was the lowest out of your five, and arranger was the top of your five. And I'm just curious about that because I think, I come see you. Oh, you're an engineer through and through. And then you get a ranger, which is kind of like an operations person. Just give me a little bit of tidbit about how did a ranger get to be the first of your strengths?
Well, I'll take it back to when I was handed a book when I was working at Johnson and Johnson. Mary Beth Sauer, good friend of mine, the director of J&J, handed me a book that said True North. And she said, I'd like you to read this. She was in operations at the time, leading an engineering function within operations. I was in R&D. I read the book and I was like, I'm an R&D. I'm an engineer. I'm an R&D. So she asked me to read it again. Just check it again, make sure. And I think that what that started me to realize is how the engineering and the operations really, the execution and the ability to move and balance myself very quickly between elements. And that's where the arranger comes in. Is I use the term assimilate into multiple different situations very quickly and be able to bring that in and live in some of that ambiguity and the kind of gray there, where engineers are a little bit black and white. So I think that's where it started to see that for myself by Mary Beth asking me to kind of take a look at myself and then pulling that through. And I think it's just kind of come out more as I've been in some of these roles over the years. And here at Stress, where we're having to be so flexible within one in the morning, I'm working on a project that might be something like a very commercial industrial product. And then in the afternoon, I'm working on something similar to a heart valve or something to that effect. So, you're having to now be as flexible that an operational expert would have to be going from all the different types of environments they're working in. So I think that's where it's starting to really show in some of my strengths and actually puts me in a comfort zone if things are moving around fast, I'm totally comfortable in that. And I think that's starting to show more.
So, what I think about what's really good for my listeners is think about periodically taking these assessments and just know that they're just a snapshot in time on that day, how you presented yourself and answered a certain set of questions. And you may look at it and say, that's not me, or oh, yeah, that is me to a T. Don't dismiss some of the characteristics as you go through these questions. They're designed in a certain way that says, oh, I'm not like that. Kind of put it aside and then come back to it later, because I was just talking about this on another podcast. Was actually, no, it was narrating my book and our gifts. Sometimes society or ourselves or other situations put us in a box or we assume a narrative. So I'm an engineer, always an engineer. I'm going to have analytical at the top of my list. But what if you were creative growing up? Maybe your creativity wasn't celebrated. Maybe you really are more of a problem solver versus just that person working the numbers. I suggest to people, just like Mike has shared with me, his complete strength finding Clifton strengths here is take the time to evaluate yourself, because as you're moving in your career, even C-suite leaders, take a moment to understand who you are and how you show up, but who are you not showing up? You may not be sharing all the skills that other people can value. And again, I'm sure you as a leader, when you meet with your people, you look at them at face value, but I'm sure you sometimes also help bring out qualities that they've not yet revealed. I'm not sure if that resonates with you, or are you mentoring
Mhm.
anybody? So maybe share a little bit about how you help others realize their value.
Well, definitely on that. I think that's one of the things as a leader we're really looking for is,
Mhm.
I use a lot of that term with some of the folks as the willing and the able, and trying to get them to be the
Mhm.
willing to kind of branch out a little bit and start that journey, because they've been maybe focused on engineering or focused in an element. Is before we push them to the side, let's see if they're willing, and if they're willing, let's see if they're able, and then let's coach them along the able. And one of the items, there's been a few times I've interviewed some PhDs perhaps, and they may have not been the right person for the right job, but we went ahead and brought them in because they're great learners. Usually, they spent so much time learning, they've already proven to the world that they can learn. So that way, it's looking for that willingness to learn and move forward. And sometimes it turns out great, and other times they realize that it's not what I thought I wanted, and then we help usher them back into another successful role. But you're constantly now looking to build that team so that when you put them together, you optimize where they're at. I'm a little bit more when I look for folks, I look for how do I optimize with them to make them the most comfortable. They'll enjoy it. Usually, they'll put in the extra effort without being asked, versus that stressful portion of maybe it's new or just totally out of their comfort zone within that. So it's just like I'm an engineer. Never thought I would be able to sell anything, and now I sell services on a daily business, and
Yeah.
I'm totally comfortable at it, and I didn't think I ever would be.
So let's go there. I recently hired a sales coach because, hey, I just wanted to show up and show my value. Market, thought leadership. Of course, people are going to come. And yeah, a few people came, but I realized, too, oh my God, that's a new skill I have to embrace. And I even cried a little bit when she talked to me. No, Deb, just change one word in what you're saying. And all of a sudden, it made all the difference. Like I said, okay, yeah, I can sell. So again, always be a learner, get a coach, learn new skills.
Yeah.
But I want to like focus on your leadership and hopefully coming closer to your heart. You're father of four. How old are your kids again? Where are they at?
Well, I have a stepdaughter who is actually 30, I think, believe she's 39.
Uh-huh.
She's given us two wonderful grandkids. And
Oh,
then I
wow.
have a 28-year-old son and two 25-year-old male female son and daughter.
Oh, wow. So how have you had to show up in their lives along the way and coach them on their perspective or leadership? I'm just curious because how are you at
Yeah,
home? Yeah.
that's the hard, actually, that's probably the hardest part is so because you see so much potential, and you want to bring that to your children, but you also in that description of the ages, I have two generations and that I'm working with basically. And my oldest daughter, she's about fostering just the success and just keep encouragement because she's got a great mind. She's done it on her own. She kind of came into I became a dad the day I got married. So she's really brought that in and been a real strong and a rock for our family. And so then I look at the three that my wife and I today have had together, and it's been great to see those folks. Even the twins, they're all different personalities, and you have the perfect combination of maybe my wife and I and our oldest son, and then the twins. They seem to be kind of separate out those parts a little bit as you would expect in twins, and having to take those different. I can really push my oldest boy, and my twins are, you got to take a different approach with them. So really it's just same thing at work and with people in leadership, and that was not natural. I that has taken years for me to see, and a lovely wife to help me identify that. uh, that has been something I focus on all the time, is making sure that I address them for an individual, not as just our family and one of the kids in our family. So,
Oh,
so even the twins, when they're totally, what similar in one area and different in the other area, and I have to address them very differently. So, and help encourage
mhm.
and coach and counsel, and as a mom, you know how all that goes, and then pulling all those same skills in and trying not to be the boss lead sometimes,
Mm.
because you do it for so many hours a day, and then you come home and you want and try to be a dad versus kind of a leader, work type
Mhm.
leader.
So I definitely agree with you. We didn't treat our kids differently per se. We brought them up with the same values and rules. But I would say then they presented different personalities for which we did have to learn and treat them slightly differently, or how to reach this conclusion, but as in a different way. Because some could say, yes, mom, and the others would like, oh
Yeah,
my God, I'm beating myself against a wall. It took them a little bit longer to realize what was right and what was wrong. But ultimately, they all came back and have similar values that we have, and they're doing just fine. So, yeah, I was just curious about that because sometimes we say, oh, we got our leadership hat at work, but sometimes we need more of that and more skills on the home front as well.
yeah, definitely. And we we did values is a good way that we did raise them similar as you stated in the values and what have
Hmm.
you, but their personalities and dealing with those individuals that connect to those values is something that it's just that you have to keep an eye on, is both at work as your leadership at as well as at home, and make sure that you can help get the message across.
Yeah, and it's a noble pursuit. And even if you anybody out there that doesn't have family, if you're a significant leader or role model for any children in your life, whether it's your community or a niece or nephew, just being able to show those values and be the leader that may or may not exist in their life, you could be leaving a legacy with them. Mike, this has been a great conversation, and I really enjoy it from the standpoint of, again, you and I have been through hard knocks and a lot of different experiences and realize leadership is just so critical for your organization, your team, and also your customers are going to feel it. I would love to share the floor with you one last time just to share any last thoughts with our community, maybe how to get a hold of you, because if there's anybody out there looking for engineering services or just wants to reach out to Mike as a leader, I'd like you just to have the last word and how people can connect with you.
Oh no, appreciate it. Again, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak today to your audience. Just share some of my stories and with you as well, because those are really what I've come to learn over the years. Is those are the important things. Is sharing the stories to be able to help others and see. And I always tell folks, it's not that I'm any smarter. I'm just pulling a scar off my back that I've already made a mistake. And if I can help you in any way, shape, or form, that's great. Myself from a standpoint and really getting a hold of me through LinkedIn will be Mike Johnson, and on LinkedIn will be the best way just to connect with me. Or from a stress engineering, connect with me direct at mike.johnson at stress.com. But and I'd love to just have conversations with anybody that wants to talk about the engineering, or I can bring in somebody that can, as I stated earlier, smarter than I am. Sharing some stories about leadership or how to get through some of the tasks and opportunities that I've been able to help out, that'd be great. And if there's anybody that would like to sit down, I do mentor some folks. So occasionally we have some folks that will come to us here at work, as well as from my past. I'll sit down and have a coffee and just hear them out and what they're going through, because it's a gap that I know that I had when I was a young engineer and starting out. Judgment free, just a coffee and kind of take some experience. So thank you very much for the opportunity today.
All right, Mike, and thank you so much. I wish you well, much success. Thanks for dropping in on the show.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.